So today, we, first off, welcome to Nonprofit Commons. It's a little, we're kind of normally meeting virtually, but it's good to sort of be able to have you here in Zoom. I am, I'm Joyce Bettencourt, the founder of Avicon and also host of the Nonprofit Commons weekly meetings. Today, we have Rebecca Conway of Sea Turtles, who many of you went on the tour in Second Life that we did of the space. And then we also have Brad here with us, who's going to, Brad Nahill, who's works at Sea Turtles, who's going to talk about his work there. And I'll turn it over to you, Rebecca, to sort of give a better opening and bio of Brad. So
okay. Good morning, everyone. I guess it's almost afternoon where we are, or where I am, but today's a very special day. We get to hear Brad Nahill, president of Sea Turtles, and he is very much into conservation and ecotourism, and I just can't tell you how happy we were to get Sea Turtles to agree to support us here in Second Life as a nonprofit entity. And so just to give you a little introduction, Brad has done this work for 25 years. And he is the editor and lead writer of Sea Turtle Research and Conservation, Lessons from the Field, and also a co-author of the Worldwide Travel Guide to Sea Turtles. And he is a National Geographic Explorer and was awarded the President's Award for his work as the chair of the awards committee of the International Sea Turtles Society. So this man knows his sea turtles, let me tell you. He's also done several books and blogs and abstracts on conservation and ecotourism, and has presented at major travel conferences and sea turtle symposia. And he works hard. I got to tell you, he's all over the map, Central America, Mexico, everywhere. Brad, Indonesia too, right?
Yeah. We partner with people, with organizations in more than 20 countries around the world. Yeah.
So that's wonderful. And he has a degree in environmental economics from Penn State, and has also taught about ecotourism at Mount Hood Community College. He's a member of the board of directors of SoCal, Southern California Sea Turtles, and the conservation committee of the Oregon Sierra Club, and has formerly served on the boards of Sea Turtles Forever and Crooked Trails. So I'm giving you a virtual applause, Brad, for being here, and now give you the floor.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, and to the whole Second Life family. We felt very welcomed here in this community, so we really appreciate it. I'm gonna be taking a little sips of water. I'm a little congested. But I'm excited to chat with you guys here from Portland, Oregon is where I am right now. So yeah, Rebecca's correct. I've been working with Sea Turtles for 25 or so years, which is still hard to kind of wrap my head around. But when I first started working with Sea Turtles, I knew like absolutely nothing about these animals. So I'll get my slideshow started here. Oh wait, I got to share my screen first. Hold on. There we go. So, yeah, the first time I worked with sea turtles, it was after I graduated from college. I went to Penn State. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. Go Eagles. And and I knew that I wanted to do something after I graduated related to the environment and wildlife, but I really had no idea what. I had no practical experience in really anything in the field. So I said, all right, I want to go volunteer somewhere. I want to go to Latin America. I went online and I started, this is before Google, but Googling, where I could volunteer. And almost every project that I could volunteer with, where I didn't need to be a biologist, was a sea turtle project. And almost all of those were in Costa Rica. So I said, okay, I guess I'm going to go work with turtles in Costa Rica. I had no experience with turtles. I didn't even watch the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles growing up. Like, I knew nothing about these animals. But it sounded like fun. I wanted to go to Costa Rica. So I got on a plane. I flew there. I met up with the folks I was going to be working with. I went out to the beach the first night, and I had really very little idea of what to expect. In retrospect, I should have probably done a little bit more research, but I got out to the beach, and the first thing they said is go take a nap, because your shift doesn't start till midnight. You're going to be walking till 4 a.m. You're going to be tired. So try to get a nap. So I tried. I had a little tent, sleeping bag, and so many thoughts running through my head in this new place. So but midnight came around. I got dressed in my turtle patrolling uniform, very similar to what I'm wearing right now. Long sleeves, dark. You want to be dark out on that beach so that the turtles don't see you and disturb them. I got out to the beach, and this is what it looked like. There were no moon, no stars, lights from the town, nothing. It was pitch black on this beach. And so I'm following along with the other researchers, trying not to bump into them because they're all wearing dark clothes, and try not to trip over the driftwood, try not to get hit by waves coming in on one side, wondering what those weird jungle sounds coming or on the other side were. We're walking along. We're all very tired and quiet. And, people are speaking Spanish around me. I didn't speak it at the time. So I'm just wondering what the heck I've gotten myself into. As we're walking along, we see a little bit of flash of red ahead. And that's a signal from another group of patrollers down the beach that they've got a turtle and that they want us to come help. So that got everybody excited. We picked up our pace. We walked quickly down the beach, and this is what we came across. Now, obviously, this is not that same turtle. This is a daytime photo, but it was a giant leatherback sea turtle. And I was completely unprepared for this moment of seeing this basically dinosaur that dragged itself out of the ocean to lay its eggs in front of us. And, from that moment on, I got hooked, and I ended up volunteering on several different projects for almost a couple of years before someone decided that they wanted to pay me to work with these animals. And so eventually I got a job running a project with my ex-wife, who I met at this very first beach, and have been working with turtles ever since. And I honestly think I have one of the best jobs in the world. I'm not going to be humble about that. I'm very, very lucky and very, very privileged to be able to do this. But one of my favorite things is being able to talk to folks like you guys about these animals. So that's what I'm going to do today. So enough preamble. Jumping into the presentation, call it Mysteries of the Sea, because there's a lot that we know about these animals. Researchers have been studying them in the modern era for, since 1950 or so 70 plus years, but there's still so much that we don't know about these animals, and we're just starting to really fill in the gaps with new technologies and research methods. So I'll talk a lot about what we do know, and I'll also talk about some that we don't know and some of the areas that we're trying to learn more about these animals. So start with the basics. There are 7 species of sea turtles in the world. There's hundreds of turtle species, but just the ones that live in the ocean, there's 7 of them. If any of you guys count real fast, you'll see that there's 8 photos or drawings up here. That's because there's a little bit of a debate, and one of the things that we're actually not 100% sure about, but the common belief now is that there's 7 species, and that 2 of them, the 2 on the far right, the one in the top right corner and the bottom right corner, are the same species. The bottom right is the green turtle, and then the top right we call the black turtle, and they live in the Eastern Pacific, so the Pacific coast of the Americas. There are some that believe that the black turtle is actually an 8th species, and there's some genetic testing being done, and the debate has mostly been settled, but some people still holding out. Other turtles that you see here, the leatherback, the giant one here in the middle that you saw in that first photo, more than twice as big as any other sea turtle, and probably the largest reptile on Earth if you're talking about by weight. The largest one that's ever been found was reportedly 12 feet long, so 3.5 meters or so, and 2,000 pounds, which to me sounds more like a small whale than a sea turtle. We don't find them quite that big anymore. Generally, the ones that we're coming across on the beaches now, because that one was found off the coast of England decades ago, generally around 6 or 7 feet long. But when we say that, we're just talking about the shell itself. That's what we measure when they come ashore. Their giant heads can be another foot or 2. But yeah, and they're usually, now we tend to find them are 700, 800, maybe up to about 1,000 pounds. They're still quite enormous animals. The green turtles, by comparison, can be 4 or so feet and 3 or so hundred pounds. Them and the one next to them, the loggerhead eating the horseshoe crab there, are the next biggest sea turtles. Loggerheads are about the same size. In the bottom left corner with the pretty shell is the hawksbill sea turtle. We'll talk about more later how that beauty is actually has become a threat to these animals, unfortunately. The shiny one here next to the leatherback is the flatback. They can only be found out around Australia. All the rest of them are much more widespread. Most of them can be found in at least at the tropical and subtropical oceans all around the world. And then the 2 smallest ones are related, but not the same species. They're different. Different species. So the one in the top left corner is the Kemp's Ridley, and the one in the middle on the top under where it says Sea Turtles of the World is the olive ridley. So those are the 2 smallest sea turtles, although they can still be well over 100 pounds and 2 to 3, well, 3 to 4 feet long. Yeah. So that's every kind of sea turtle that you can find on the planet. So I mentioned briefly just now about their distribution. This is just of the green sea turtle. So the dots that you see there are nesting beaches, and then the shaded area there is their distribution. They don't tend to go frequently up to places like Alaska or the tip of South America, but they can and have been. So you can find sea turtles pretty much anywhere in the oceans, except for with maybe the Antarctic, the Southern Ocean. They can be found in the Arctic Ocean. Leatherbacks especially like to go up into the cold waters, which I'll talk more about that in a minute. So why are sea turtles important? We like to talk about the importance of animals in terms of their relationships to other flora and fauna in their habitats, where they live. And so sea turtles are important for those reasons. One of the biggest reasons they're important is they're prey, they're food for lots of different species of animals. That hatchling there may look big on your screen. It's about that big in real life. And whether either the egg or as a hatchling, they're really vulnerable to predators. So there's a wide variety. There's domestic animals. So some of my domestic animals may make an appearance here. I have a couple of cats and a dog. The cats especially like to hop up when I'm talking. But in a lot of places where the turtles nest, people might not have the money to spay or neuter their animal. They might not be able to purchase food for them, so they're left to forage on their own. They may reproduce and have feral offspring. And so those offspring will sometimes go out to the beaches, dig up the nests, eat the hatchlings and stuff. But primarily their predators are wild. So that includes birds like pelicans, frigate birds, vultures, fish will eat them, crabs will grab them on their way from the nest down to the water and pull them down into their holes. There's a type of insect, a type of fly that will lay its larva, its eggs, on top of the surface where they know where there's a nest. Those larvae will dig down into the nest and eat the eggs before they hatch. And so that's a predator that I usually get some strange looks from. People don't tend to think of an insect predating a reptile, but nature is weird and wonderful. Mammals like raccoons, and this one's a coati, which you can find in the Central American rainforest. Very smart animals, very adaptable, omnivorous animals that will eat eggs, eat hatchlings. So just to go back to that real quick. So how are sea turtles still around with this many predators? So over their lifetimes, sea turtles can lay thousands of eggs. They'll lay anywhere from 70 eggs in a nest for a leatherback up to at times more than 200 for a hawksbill. Generally, they'll lay multiple times in a nesting season. The leatherbacks can be known to nest up to 11 times. So it's usually like 5, 6, 7 times. And then the other species generally, 2 or 3 times in the season. And that's usually every other year. And then that can be for 40, 50 some years. So if you add all those numbers up, that can mean thousands of eggs. And so our best guess, and the number that's thrown around a lot, although it's not really based on a lot of research, is 1 out of 1,000 hatchlings may survive until adulthood, and that's under natural conditions. So that's the estimate that's commonly used in our field. Again, in terms of whether that's accurate or not, that is a bit of a mystery too. But that's the number that we like to use. So if we have a turtle that lays 5,000 eggs over its lifetime, hopefully at least 5 of those are surviving until adulthood. So what happens to the other 4,995 is they're mostly being preyed upon. And so they provide an important source of food for a lot of different kinds of animals. And if they're not eaten, they break down and provide nutrients to sandy beaches, which don't tend to have a lot. So it helps provide nutrients for beach vegetation as well. By the time they're full grown, there's only a few predators of a full-grown sea turtle. They grow that thick shell, which is really keratin for the most part, with all the hard-shelled species. Leatherback is that's more of a skin. But that's a really, really strong protection for sea turtles, and it prevents most predators from being able to eat them, and sometimes even the sharks. There are occasionally other predators of sea turtles. I think the most interesting, fascinating one to me is the jaguar. In Central America, there are jaguars in a couple of different places, in Costa Rica particularly, and a couple of specific spots in Costa Rica, have learned that they can go out to the beach and there's this slow-moving, basically defenseless animal out there laying its eggs. So they will go and eat the turtles kind of around the head and neck and shoulders that they're able to get to. They're not any kind of threat towards any of the researchers that are out on the beaches. I have friends that work on these beaches and they see them, but the jaguars keep their distance. People are not food for jaguars generally. But that's a predator that we're seeing in a couple of places. Sea turtles are also really important for what they eat. A lot of people know that the jellyfish are the favorite food of the sea turtles. They're particularly the favorite food of the leatherbacks. So this might not look like a jellyfish to you guys. I purposely tried to find a photo of a non-jellyfish looking jellyfish. They can come in all shapes and sizes. They can be so small you can't see them. They can be so big they can weigh hundreds of pounds. So the leatherbacks, I mentioned, they go up to the Arctic. So in the US, let me say in the Western Hemisphere, they'll nest in on the Caribbean islands and then the Caribbean coast of Central America. They'll come all the way up the east coast of the US, all the way off the coast of Canada. In the Pacific, they'll nest in places like Indonesia, Malaysia, come all the way across again to the US, specifically to Monterey Bay, a really productive marine environment off the coast of California, and then up the coast past me here in Oregon, going up to Alaska, because that's where they find the big jellyfish. So they do these huge migrations that can take years. So how does a sea turtle like a leatherback survive on jellyfish? The answer is by eating a lot of them. Jellyfish are almost completely made out of water. There's very little fat or nutrition in them, so they have to eat a lot of them. And so I've seen estimates saying that they can eat more than half of their body weight in jellyfish per day. So that's, 300, 400, 500 pounds of jellyfish a day. So anyone that likes to go in the ocean and swim in the ocean and not get stung by jellyfish, you want there to be a lot of sea turtles out there in the ocean, because they're one of the few predators that really help control their populations. The hatchlings, once they're born, they will head out to the water. This is the favorite photo I've ever taken. I'm not a professional by any stretch, but this one came out great. This one's from Panama on a trip that we led, releasing a leatherback hatchling out to the water. So on this point, one of the other reasons that we like to talk about sea turtles are important is their emotional value. In terms of, humans in particular. So getting away a little bit from the ecological value, but into the importance for humans. Our co-founder, my good friend, Jay Nichols, he wrote an amazing book called Blue Mind. If you like the ocean and the water, definitely check it out. It's about how being in and around the ocean is good for your brain. It's good for creativity. It puts you in a meditative, creative, trance-like state. And being with a wild ocean animal can help with that state. So people going and traveling around the world to go see these animals is good for the people. It can be really good for the communities as well. The reason that we started this project and the reason that we call it Sea Turtles, spelled S-E-E, is because we want people to go out and see these animals in the wild. If it's done right, it can be a real huge benefit to communities. It can be a real huge benefit to conservation, and it can be a life-changing experience for the people that go and see them. And this guy right here, Uber is his name, is a great example. And Don Chewy, with the guy with the hat, one of my tour travelers, called him the Mexican Marlboro Man, in an affectionate and complimentary way. These guys were turtle hunters before they engaged with conservation and ecotourism. But Dr. Nichols, our co-founder, was working in Baja and took these folks out and worked with them and paid them to help him collect data and study sea turtles. And over the years of working with them, they learned how to love these animals, stopped participating in the turtle hunting, and became two of the more dedicated conservationists that I've ever met. And they now work with a group called the Grupo Tortuguero in Baja, bringing people to communities where the sea turtles are can be really beneficial to these communities. A lot of them are off the tourism maps and might not have a lot of visitors coming there. And people in these communities might not have a lot of alternatives towards eating sea turtles. And so the income that people going turtle watching that brings into these communities can be really, really important and transformative for the residents of these areas. They also have really strong cultural value for a lot of native communities around the world. This one is from Panama, an indigenous community in the southern Caribbean side of Panama, the Cunayala. There is an indigenous community in Mexico that has a whole ceremony when the leatherbacks come to nest. They believe that the leatherbacks are their ancestors returning to them. There's Native American creation stories about the earth being created on the back of a turtle. So they also have very strong cultural value in a lot of places. I would just like to include this photo. This is my daughter. She's now 21 years old, just turned in and now in college, but I've taken her out to the beach a lot. And, she grew up learning about and helping to study these animals as well. And as I think a real great example of how transformative working with these animals can be. So moving on to the sad part of the presentation, why are sea turtles endangered? They're endangered for a lot of reasons, all related to humans. I promise after this is going to be more uplifting towards the end, but we got to, take our medicine if we're learning about endangered species and really understand what the real situation is. So this is the status, the red list status, we call it. This is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. My cat goes running by, sorry. Of the 7 species in the world, 6 of them have some form of category of being endangered. So either critically endangered, endangered, or vulnerable. Data deficient means we're still not quite sure. To be able to tell how endangered an animal is, you have to have really good data going back in time. And so with the flatback, we don't have a ton of great data, even though within Australia, where they primarily live, they are considered endangered as well. So I know these are terms that conservationists will throw out there a lot, and I'm sure you have an idea of what they means, but there's actually real concrete numbers to them. So I'll give you that info so that you really have a good sense of how endangered. So to be considered vulnerable, the population of a species has to have dropped at least 40% over 3 generations. So a generation, hatching to reproduction in a sea turtle can be as little as 15, but probably more like 20, 25, 30 years. Again, an area of study that we're still figuring out exactly how long it is. There's no way to look at a turtle and tell how old it is. So at least a 40% drop over 3 generations. So if you say 20 years, so over 60 years, at least a 40% drop in their population for leatherback loggerheads and olive ridleys. To be considered endangered, it has to be at least a 60% drop over those 3 generations. And to be considered critically endangered, it has to be at least an 80% drop over 3 generations. And so the hawksbills and the Kemp's ridleys both fit into that category. Now, there is some hidden good news that I'll reveal to you in a little bit in this. It looks very depressing, and I agree it is, but there is some good news out there that we'll talk about. So why are sea turtles endangered? The biggest reasons that they are endangered are, one, getting caught in fishing gear. So they get caught on lines, in nets. There's places that do this really horrifying thing called bomb fishing, where they'll literally create sort of a homemade bomb with fertilizer, throw it in the water, and it kills everything in the path. That happens. It's declining, which is good, but it still does happen in some places. So if any of you guys remember the movie from years ago from George Clooney and I think Mark Wahlberg, The Perfect Storm, about the fishermen being caught out at sea. Those were long line fishermen. That's what this is. This is a long line. And it's an accurate description. These lines can be 50 miles long and have thousands on hooks on them on each line. Each of those hooks is baited. And so if a sea turtle wants whatever that food is, they'll get caught on it. Now, they're air-breathing reptiles. If they can't get up to the surface, they can drown. And so research was done around a decade or so ago showing about 1.5 million turtles being caught in the world's fisheries. And that's just what's reported. So the number is probably a lot higher over a 10-year period. So this is one of the biggest threats to sea turtles. People eating the turtles, eating the eggs, or using their shells is another big threat, although the good news is that this has declined quite a bit. It's now illegal in most places. This beach is actually a beach where it is legal to collect them. It's in Costa Rica. It's a place that has what's called an arrabada, where the olive ridley species will come and nest in mass numbers. And when I say mass, I mean like 100,000 turtles nesting at the same time, like over a 3 or 4 day period. Within the first day, people are allowed to collect the eggs and sell them. And research has showed that that doesn't really affect them because most of those first eggs do not survive anyway. They get dug up by other eggs. When I first went to work with sea turtles, my first reaction when hearing about people eating turtles and eating their eggs was, oh, bad people, don't eat the poor animals. But living in these communities, meeting the people who live there, I learned that things are never that black and white. It's not a good or bad. In a lot of these communities, these communities were formed based on turtle hunting and turtle exploitation. Great-grandparents, grandparents, parents all ate turtle, all served turtle to their families, sold the meat. And so it was a major form of income. And they've always been there. And it wasn't any different than any other type of animal for these communities. And a lot of places, people are not aware of what's happening around the world. So, what I believe and what a lot of conservationists, I think, are increasingly believing is that conservation is not necessarily about working with the animals. It's about working with the people in the communities and providing alternatives so that people can feed their families and survive while either working with or allowing the turtles to recover. Because I certainly know if I was in a desperate situation, didn't have any form of income, I would eat turtle, I would eat the meat, I would feed it to my family if that's what it meant to survive. So it's our job as conservationists to help figure out ways to help the communities around sea turtles thrive, as well as the sea turtles themselves. There are some legal fisheries. The green turtle is the #1 turtle that's hunted for its meat. This is a legal fishery off the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua. It's a little tough to see, but you can see the whole bottom of the boat there is filled with green turtles. So this is a major form of income and survival for a lot of people in places where there are few alternatives. Plastic. Okay, I can say this in black and white terms. Plastic in the ocean is bad. Plastic is a very useful thing. We use it for so many different things. We really need to start using less of it and figuring out ways to make it that are not polluting the oceans, because this problem is huge and it's growing by the day. I think we're starting to make a little bit of progress on it. Here in Oregon, we've now banned plastic bags and are working on other forms of single-use plastic. California has passed a lot of good laws. But plastic is a problem for sea turtles at every stage of their lives. So the hatchlings in the sand, the plastic can break down and become microplastic, which microplastic has this amazing ability to attract toxins. So it's like a magnet for toxins. So if there's a beach that is full of microplastic, it's also toxic sand, and that can affect the development of the eggs. The hatchlings get to the surface, they might have to crawl through plastic waste that's washed ashore to get to the water. They may get tangled up in it and discarded plastic fishing nets or plastic, six-pack rings, things like that. They may confuse plastic for jellyfish and eat it. So plastic is bad for wildlife, for the planet, and something that we hope we can figure out how to stop using. Fossil fuels are also a problem for sea turtles in a lot of ways. I'm sure a lot of you will remember the BP oil spill. That stuff is still there. The dispersant that they use to disperse it is still there. It's still affecting sea turtles. It's affecting the most endangered sea turtles, the Kemp's Ridleys. And not only that, but burning of the fossil fuels and climate change is a huge and growing problem for sea turtles. Rising oceans are inundating turtle nesting beaches. The sex of a sea turtle is not already determined when the egg is laid. It is determined by the temperature of where it is in the nest and the temperature of the sand. And so as sand temperatures are rising around the world, we're seeing some beaches where 100% of the hatchlings are coming out as female. And there's some ways that we can adapt and try to balance that out, but that's not good for the long-term health of any population to only have one sex over the other. Rising ocean temperatures affect coral reefs, which are a major sea turtle habitat, causing coral bleaching. So climate change, also bad. So we're hopeful that, that the world can shift to renewables as quickly as possible, because it's not only good for turtles, it's good for people and everything else that lives on this planet. This is an illustration. This is a beach erosion from rising seas that we're seeing increasingly on beaches around the world. Tortoiseshell. So this comes from the shell of the hawksbill sea turtle. I mentioned that they were the most beautiful of the sea turtles. Well, this beauty has been a threat to them for thousands of years. Tortoiseshell was plastic before plastic was invented. It's really malleable. You can fuse the shells together and make really, really beautiful stuff. I'm sure you've all seen this pattern. Tortoiseshell is also just become the name of the pattern itself, and not necessarily that it's from a turtle, but this is still frequently sold in a lot of places around the world. It can be occasionally found in the US in thrift shops and stuff like that. Primarily, you're finding it in places like Latin America, Asia, the Caribbean, where we see a lot in Indonesia, China. You can find it in Costa Rica. Nicaragua is a major place for it. Colombia are places where you can find these products. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can help us address that issue. We did a report, came out in April of 2020. The absolute best time to release a report that you're hoping for some media coverage is right at the beginning of a giant pandemic that the world hasn't seen for 100 years. So learned a lesson there. But yeah, we came out with this report, and these are the places where tortoiseshell is being found, even here in the US. All right, so what's the good news? I know I promised good news. So in a lot of places, things are getting a lot better. Let me do a quick time check here. All right, yeah. So I'm going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. We'll have some time for questions. But so to leave you guys on a good note, sea turtle populations are growing in a lot of places around the world. A lot of those threats that I just talked about are declining. Climate and plastic are not, but hunting, fishing, those threats are becoming less prevalent. And so a study done a few years ago looking at different populations of the different species around the world. The green ones here on this map are ones that are growing, and the red ones are ones that are declining. So there's 11 growing populations versus 4 declining ones, which is really, really encouraging news. So the numbers, CC is loggerhead, CM is green, DC is leatherback, LK is the Kemp's Ridley, EI is the hawksbill, LO is the olive ridley. Things are getting better in a lot of places. There's a beach in Mexico that in the 20s, 30s, 40s had 60 or 70,000 nests of the black turtles, the main place where the black turtle lays their eggs. People were eating the eggs. They were exporting the meat to places around the world through the 50s and 60s. By 1982, researchers started going to that community and working with the local indigenous population to start trying to turn things around. But numbers kept dropping. It was eating turtle meat was outlawed in the early 90s in Mexico. By 1999, they had 500 nests. So from 60,000 to 500 nests. Some researchers believe they were too far gone to bother protecting. But these researchers in Mexico there at this beach kept working. In 2000, the number started going back up a little bit, and they started growing year after year, 1,000, couple thousand, 5,000, 10,000. This past year, I just heard from my friend who's the researcher there, they're back up to 80,000 nests. They are recovered to previous levels, pre-human levels, we believe, which is amazing news. And I think has to be one of the most successful wildlife conservation projects in the world. But we've seen numbers grow in quite a few places around the world. And I think there's real hope that sea turtles numbers are going to keep growing, but we need to keep focusing on them, focusing attention on them and learning about them and protecting them to make sure that that continues. So how do we protect them? So there's a few different ways. Altering fishing gear. This is what's called a turtle excluder device. Here in the US, there's now law that everyone has to use them, and we won't even import shrimp, because that's what they're used for, is to catch shrimp, from places that don't use them. That's our law, and that helps a lot. We're figuring out how to find and know where they are and learn more about their lives by using technology like drones, like satellite transmitters that you can see on the back of this shell. The black stuff is a marine grade epoxy glue that holds that on, but that sends signals up to a satellite in space so we can follow where that turtle goes. Because how do you protect an animal if you don't know where it's going? We've also learned that when you protect those nesting beaches and get as many of those hatchlings back out into the water, once those hatchlings start returning, which you have to be very patient to work in sea turtle conservation. It can take, like I said, 15, 20, maybe more years for those turtles to start returning, but the numbers can start growing again. This is a picture from that beach in Mexico, the Black Turtle Beach, the favorite turtle photo I've ever had. We worked with a professional photographer for this one. We know we're not supposed to use white lights. This one mimicked lightning to have a very, very minimal impact on the turtle and create a really stunning photo. Cleaning plastic out of the ocean is a really big thing. We've started a new program where we're supporting efforts by communities to clean the plastic from the beaches and to locally repurpose and recycle that waste into useful things that can then be sold to support conservation and these local communities. So I mentioned early on, there was some hidden good news in this very depressing graph. So this is what it looks like now. This is what it used to look like 10 years ago. The leatherback was considered critically endangered. The loggerhead was considered endangered. But because of growing populations in a lot of the nesting beaches that had been previously not discovered by scientists, means that those have now both been downgraded to vulnerable, which is much better than endangered and critically endangered. So all this amazing work is really having an impact. So to wrap up with what you guys can do is, one is go see them. It's another one from Colola Beach. We're going to be offering a trip to that amazing Black Turtle Beach in Mexico. We've taken people there before, and we're going to take them again about a year from now. And so when we went before a few years ago, we were having we were releasing 2,000 to 3,000 hatchlings per night. They now have twice as many nesting turtles as they did then. So we're expecting more hatchlings than you could possibly imagine. Just the area of beach right in front of the research station, we were having 15 or 20 turtles nesting per evening. So a really amazing experience. We have a program called Billion Baby Turtles where we raise funds to support turtle nesting beaches around the world. This past year, we helped save more than 3 million hatchlings on more than 50 beaches around the world. And so what we do is we find these beaches that don't have a lot of sources of funding, that are really efficient, that need just a few $1,000s, and we get them the funds so that people can walk up and down the beach, make sure that nobody's taking the eggs, provide some local jobs. This program helps support more than 150 residents of these communities, which we feel like is as important as saving the turtles is supporting these local economies. Another great recovery story is the Eastern Pacific hawksbill. 15 years ago, they were written off as well. There's not enough of them to be around. Still have some time. Not enough of them to bother protecting. Well, since then, a couple of important nesting beaches were discovered in El Salvador and Nicaragua. Every single egg is being protected now, and there's now believed to be more than 1,000 of these around. So that's really great news as well. use less plastic is number one in terms of our advice that helps sea turtles. If you can recycle it, please do. I mean, even here in the US, less than 10% of plastic gets recycled. And participate in cleanup efforts. There's cleanup efforts all around the world, lakes, rivers, coasts. But what I always recommend when I go out into nature is I bring a little bag along and try to collect as much trash from nature as much as I can. It's good for people. It's good for animals. It's good for your mood, I find. These are a couple of places in Oregon that do cleanup. So we have a new program called Travelers Against Plastic, where we provide tips on how to live plastic free and how you can support some of these beach cleanup efforts around the world. On the tortoiseshell issue, we have a guide on how to recognize them. And we can put links out for this as well, but we've also created a new app that uses artificial intelligence. So if you have this app and you're going to a place like, Indonesia or Central America, and you want to make sure you're not buying products that are made from real tortoiseshell, you can snap a photo with this app and it'll tell you with more than 90% accuracy if it's real or not. And then we get to collect that data and find out where this stuff is happening. And we can work with local partners to try to reduce that trade. So highly recommend, if you're planning any travel to the tropics anytime soon, is to download this app and help us collect this data and help avoid purchasing these products. I have happened to find one of them at a friend's place who had gone to Cuba and found it and purchased it without knowing and brought it here back to the United States, which you can get in trouble for. So that's the end of my presentation. Hope you guys will join us for a trip. We offer trips to Costa Rica, Mexico, Belize, Panama, Galapagos. Support our programs. We're helping, community-based efforts around the world. And thank you guys. We've already received tremendous support from the Second Life community, and we're really appreciative of that. So thank you guys for taking your time out today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and bring myself back, and we have time for a few questions. So thank you guys so much.
Sure. I mean, thank you for that too. That was great. We're glad to have you here at Nonprofit Commons. If anybody has questions, you can put those in chat here in Zoom or in the virtual world if you want to, and we'll drag those in. So, and I don't know if Rebecca, if you have anything that you want to kind of start questions off with or say anything.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Brad for taking the time to come in and, shining a light on the issues. And it was really a wonderful presentation. I think I learned a lot more about the plight of sea turtles in the oceans just in the 45 minutes of being able to hear someone who's in the field and does research. So thank you so much. And if anyone does have questions, please don't be shy.
So we have, oh, I don't know. Were you going to say something, Brad, or no?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say in the chat, there's a question from Buffy, who is going to be joining us for an upcoming trip to Costa Rica. So yeah, on our Costa Rica trips, you get to work hands-on with those amazing leatherback turtles. So you're walking up and this is true for a lot of our trips. You're walking up and down the beaches with the researchers. When you find a turtle, when it starts digging its nest, then you get to approach it because they go into like a trance-like state. And that's how we can manage being around the turtles and studying them without impacting them. They're not really focused on anything but digging that hole and laying those eggs. And that way people can measure the length and the width of the turtle. In places like Costa Rica there, where people do eat the eggs are collected in a bag and moved to what we call a hatchery, which is a area of beach that is blocked off and watched 24 hours. And an artificial nest, a human dug nest, is dug and the eggs are put in there so they can be watched until they hatch and then released out into the ocean. But on all of our trips, we incorporate other fun stuff. Usually we'll do beach cleanups. That trip in particular, we're doing visiting a butterfly farm, but in some cases you'll do, whale watching or cultural activities, things like that. So yeah, we look forward to having you on that trip. I see another question here. Do the leatherback turtles also go up the European coast of the Norwegian Sea? So you can find sea turtles off of Europe. The leatherbacks that I mentioned that come up the east coast of the US sometimes will then head off the coast of England and then down sometimes to Africa or sometimes down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and then back to the Caribbean on their kind of circular rotation. I do not believe that any turtles that I'm aware of that go up to the Norwegian Sea, but around Europe, you find a lot of turtles in the Mediterranean, particularly loggerhead turtles, and you'll find them off the coast of Spain, France, things like that, as well in their migrations. Yeah.
So Brad, I have a question too. So
Yes.
obviously you're doing a lot of protection of those spaces that they're coming in to breed, the beaches. Do you actually do any work with injured turtles that might come to the space or anything like that? Or is it mostly just protecting the spawning? And
we don't, our organization doesn't work on rehabbing injured turtles, but there are a lot of places that do. In the US, there's a number of places, particularly on the East Coast and Florida and Georgia, that will take injured turtles, particularly ones that get caught in fishing gear or caught up in plastic or are sick. What happens here in Oregon in some places and in New England as well is that sea turtles will get what we call cold stunned. So when there's a rapid change in ocean temperature, it kind of makes the turtles pass out, and often they will wash ashore. And so what happens is a lot of aquaria. So here in Oregon, the Oregon Aquarium or the New England Aquarium or other aquaria will take them and warm them back up, nurse them back to health. And then there's actually a fun organization called Turtles Fly too, that works with pilots to then fly these recovered turtles from colder areas to warmer areas. Because if a turtle's cold stunned in, say in New England, you can't put it back in that cold water. They fly it down to Florida and then release it back into the water there, which is, it's still normal habitat, just kind of shortcutting that return back. So yeah, there's a lot of places that do rehabilitation of turtles as well. Yeah. Oh, I think, are you muted, Joyce?
sorry. Yes. Any final questions for Brad or anything before we wrap things up? Either here or in
I'm going to put my email here in the chat as well. And if any other questions come up or you want to just say hello or any other questions or anything like that, feel free to get in touch. And then I kind of showed it on that last slide, but our website is seaturtles.org. So yeah, hope you'll join us. Hope you'll get in touch. And thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brad. Really, it was great to see you. And just, good luck. Good luck in the future.
Yep. And things like the app and those resources they can find on your website too, I would imagine.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have them all over the place. And if you can't find it, yeah, just shoot me an email.
Okay, fantastic. So
thanks, Brad, for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So with that, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Rebecca, for sort of setting this up and being that go-between. I know it was a little different of an NPC meeting because we're kind of in an extra space, but hopefully it wasn't too awkward. Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure through the folks in the Sea Turtle kind of stuff in Second Life and through you that we'll probably hear an update at some point. Yep. And otherwise, thank you for being part of today at Nonprofit Commons. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to stop the stream for anybody who's listening via YouTube. And you know, I'll still be here in both places on the Zoom and this if anybody's got any questions or whatever too. So okay, so take care and for anybody leaving, and thank you again, Brad.
My pleasure. Goodbye, everybody.